Welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Richmond. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon.
Wait, BBD is 2-0 with his deck so far?
Oh,
What?
are you shocked or what?
Oh,
this
my
is a deck
goodness.
that Paul and I watched Brian draft earlier in the day here in the first draft, and it is a black-blue cycling deck primarily. Talk to us a little bit about what the game plan is from Brian Brownduin's perspective.
Well, yeah, most versions of this tend to basically, you kind of have a lot of cards that synergize well with kind of cycling or discarding. Cycling is a form of discarding, and you have a lot of effects that you get benefits from. So again, Brian has multiple copies of Heckma Sentinel. He's got Shadowstorm Viziers, Pitiless Vizier. I don't even know if that ended up making his main deck.
Yeah, he ended up with 2 of them in his pile.
Right.
Maybe I can dig up a deck list to answer that question, but yeah, he does have those payoffs.
So you have a lot of those payoff creatures with a lot of cycling, and that's kind of your game plan. And a lot of versions of this kind of end up being a little more defensive, and you kind of try to win with like good late game powerful cycling payoffs. But with Brian's deck, he actually has a very nice mana curve, lots of great 2s, 3s, and 4s, and then on top of that, he has great finishers as well. He's got a Curator of Mysteries that he picked up 3rd pick, on top of a late claim that he got 5th pick.
I still get
in pack 1.
I just shudder at the thought of that, but I did watch it live. I know it happened.
I also think Brian might be the only blue drafter at the entire table because he got a Shimmer Scale Drake with 4 cards left in the pack during the draft. But Michael with pretty nice deck himself, really aggressive black-red deck. Now the strategy for the black-red deck, a little bit different. The blue-black deck is kind of trying to play the role of a control deck, a little more grindy, attrition-y. The black-red deck wants to basically dump out its hand, be really aggressive, and then kind of there are some payoffs for making sure you are basically have 1 or less 1 or 0 cards in your hand. Cards like Thresher Lizard is the card that you want to see most often. Oh wow!
Yeah, this is a fine play here from Michael. He's going to use Splendid Agony to shrink down the Heckma Sentinels and to take out the copy of the Labyrinth Guardian.
Yeah, really great start out of Michael. We talk about how
BBD's
Labyrinth
at 6.
Yeah, we talk about how Labyrinth Guardian doesn't really have that much of a drawback here because for the most part you're going to have to use a real spell to get it off the board, and it's got Embalm. It's a 2-mana 2/3, very very efficient creature. But if you have a card that targets multiple things, a spell that targets like Splendid Agony, that's when you can potentially get blown out.
That's right. So BBD, in an attempt to stabilize, is going to play a Horror of the Broken Lands, and things are looking precarious. And boom!
Wow.
He's taking even more damage here. He's going to go down to 2 life. Trial of Ambition is going to force BBD to sack a creature. He's going to sack, of course, the Heckma Sentinel's a smaller creature. But the hits keep coming here for Michael, who plays a Doomed Dissenter as well, and once again is presenting lethal damage to Brian, who must do something to react here.
Yeah, and as you can see, Michael already has a Cartouche of Zeal on the battlefield, which does synergize really well with all of the trials. I really like taking the trials early in draft.
Same.
Even if the trial might be slightly worse than a common that you see, when you take it first pick, you can kind of draft differently and make sure you value the cartouches higher. And when you ever draw them in conjunction with each other, just the combination you get so much value out of that.
Yeah. And the truth is that they didn't make it that hard either, because
right.
Like you were saying, maybe you find a common that you like a little bit better than the trial. There's only a few. Like the
right.
trials are actually pretty powerful on their own for the most part. Sure, there's some removal spells, Electrify or something that probably on average do a little more than just a lone trial.
Right.
But even then, some of the, like the Trial of Zeal, for example, is just better.
Yeah, and not only that, they also made the cartouches very playable. Traditionally, there's a big cost of playing auras, but all of these auras have effects when they enter the battlefield, and they're pretty reasonably costed. They've been pushed for sure for limited, and then of course they also synergize really well with the trials.
So speaking of, here's a Cartouche of Ambition for Brian Brownduin, and he's attempting to gain a bunch of life here by making an attack for 5.
Yeah, what a big swing in terms of life total here.
And he does succeed at that, and of course he does have a follow-up blocker, as he is at a fairly precarious 7 life.
Right. He's still in some trouble. If Michael has a removal spell, for
Yeah,
the
a cartouche
the
would get
Seeker
the
of
job
Insight.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically anything. Currently, Brian is looking at 6 damage here because he can block one of the 2/2s on the board. That would put him down to 1 because he's now at 7 after gaining the life. Brian's got 1 black mana. The only card in the format that he could be representing here is a supernatural stamina in terms of a trick. He could also have a cycler.
Yes.
Although it doesn't look like Michael has anything. Otherwise, he probably would have just played whatever spell wins in the game right now, right away.
Yeah, but he still has a clean attack here. Brian
Yes.
is not, by the way, at 2.
Yeah. This is going to put Brian down to 1. He gained 5 life after the attack with the hit into the Horror of the Broken Lands.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get that life total updated as soon as possible here.
Ooh, okay.
Is that a Merciless Javelineer there?
That is. Michael's deck looks pretty great as well.
It looks fantastic. I'm not surprised to see these players duking it out for the pod victory here.
Yeah, but Brian gets the crack in for 5 again, gain 5 life, and if he's got a couple of cheap cyclers, that's just even more life. For example, if he has like a couple of 1-mana cyclers in his hand, he can go up, and he might actually be able to race this if he drops another blocker this turn. Although he is also staring at a Merciless Javelineer, which makes blocking impossible. Brian can't hold the Horror back on defense because of the Javelineer. He just has to attack there.
Yeah, but that could also still just leave him dead in certain scenarios.
Right.
So he's a tough position here as Brian Brown doing our reigning world champ.
He did have a commit. He's tapping 4 mana. Maybe that's what he's looking to play here because he does need to get that Javelineer off the board if he wants to have any hope of...
Wow. It's tough because a Trial of Knowledge is the type of card that can help you find the answers you need, but it's a little expensive at 4 mana, and that's going to make life very difficult here for Brian Brown doing.
It does give him a discard, so it is basically gaining him 2 additional life here. With the Horror in play, it does trigger off both cycling and discard. He can also use the Seeker. If he thinks he's not going to be able to block because of the Javelineer that's on the board, he should just loot with the Seeker to try to gain more life.
Yeah, 9 life.
Yeah.
It's adding up.
It's adding up. That's 9 life, and if he finds a couple of more 1-mana cyclers, maybe he gets there. Okay, that's an additional cycle. This is a lot of damage. It's currently got 9 power. It's a 9/7, I believe.
Could even be more.
Yeah, it could be more. Brian should loot. He is facing off against the Javelineer, which makes your creatures unable to block.
Yeah, if he's going to attack with the
Oh,
Horror
no,
of the Broken
sorry.
Lands.
He cannot loot. I just realized there's a Harsh Mentor on the battlefield, which makes you take 2 damage anytime you use an activated ability.
You are completely
Right.
correct. It's kind of hidden underneath a zombie there.
Yeah.
But if he loots, he dies.
Yeah.
Now, he can loot after,
He can.
but of course, he's not going to get that life back.
Right.
Harsh Mentor is a rare and one that you don't see too often as a result.
Oh,
he forgot. Oh, no.
Well, it took me a while to see it, too. It
did.
Often when you're playing a format when it's new, sometimes you just don't know what some of the subtext of your rares do. Like, example, putting a cartouche on your Glyph Keeper. Wow.
You know, there is a chance. I mean, BBD is kind of smiling now. He could be smiling because he forgot, or he could be smiling because he said, look, I need this to happen.
Right.
Maybe you'll forget.
Right.
I didn't do the math.
Because I think he was just dead on board, even if he gained.
That's the thing.
11.
He might have been dead anyway. He made it just, it's kind of the
Mistrigger.
You just have to try it out because you need it to work that way anyway. But Michael snapped it off. He had his pen at the ready,
Oh, yeah.
pointed at the Harsh Mentor, and that is game 1 going to Michael. We've got a short break. When we come back, we'll have more live magic here from Richmond. Pre-Richmond, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon. Paul, we've got the shuffle cam in effect. Everybody's currently shuffling, so we can't jump over to watch another match, so we'll just hang here as these gentlemen produce their sufficiently randomized decks. It looks like maybe Michael's on a mold of 6 here.
Yeah, it's definitely possible here.
Yeah, that is what's happening.
Or he's just randomly looking at the top of his deck.
Well,
why not?
It's less likely. Brian, on the play this time, is going to pass the turn back to Michael. No one drops for either player, just swamps. But here is a Shadow Storm Vizier from Brian Brown. Doing?
He has to be thrilled to be on the play here against Michael's incredibly aggressive black-red deck.
Yeah, here's a Pathmaker Initiate for Michael, which doesn't look great in the face of a Heckma Sentinels. Quick start here for BBD. So 2-drop into 3-drop.
Yeah,
let's see if Michael can match that pace.
And two cards that kind of some of the payoffs he has for all the cycling cards he has in his deck.
Absolutely.
They just kind of
could have
pile on top of each other.
Yeah, totally.
It just makes basically attacking into these creatures impossible and also blocking impossible. Just all your cycling spells just become catcher's names, basically, if you have a bunch of these on the board. Oh.
Ooh, how about an on-crop crasher? We mentioned the if he could keep up.
Right.
And the answer is yes. He's going to exert and say, you may not block. You take 5 damage. BBD's going to fall to 15. Just like that. On-crop crasher, one of the scarier cards in the format. It's the type of card that can steal a win.
BBD really wants to play something like a Cartouche of Ambition this turn. Really helps swing things around. All right.
It's going to cycle a River Serpent. That's going to trigger both of his creatures. He's going to cycle a Horror of the Broken Lands. Wow. Also going to trigger both of his creatures. This is 7 damage. Yes. Maybe he can just race. Down to 12 goes Michael.
And he found a land. Is this another Vizier? That's a Labyrinth Guardian.
No, but a Labyrinth Guardian's a nice pickup here as well.
Yeah, and we've touched on this in the past. Labyrinth Guardian only has to be sacrificed if you target it with a spell, so you cannot get it with the Pathmaker Initiate. Yeah, Michael. It looks like Michael has an Electrify in hand, but I don't really think he wants to fire it off on the Labyrinth Guardian here.
Even though he would like to get in for a couple of points of damage, I think he's got bigger problems than that.
Yeah.
If he does want to use it this turn, he's going to want to do it on his main phase.
Definitely. Unless he wants to just get the get the Guardian to attack for 2. Okay. Looks like he's trying to set up for a big attack next turn.
Yeah, he's going to play a Minotaur Sure Shot, which actually does a decent job here. It can block the Shadowstorm Vizier. It does have reach, though it could be risky business to do so.
Yeah, you are playing against a blue-black cycling deck, so there's a decent chance that they have to. Brian's already used 2 cyclers, so if Brian does opt to attack, Michael might consider blocking. Michael is at 12 life. Yeah, I'm not sure what the contents of Brian's hand is, but if he's got a few cyclers, this is a race he could win. Wow, and also attacking with the Labyrinth Guardian.
How much cycling does he have? None.
That is interesting.
Okay, well.
Huh.
Interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, so I might have considered
just leaving back
one of the creatures because the Crasher is going to be able to make it so that the Shimmer Scale Drake can't attack. So this is basically
can't block.
Can't block. So this is a guaranteed 7 damage. Trying to think what other cards Michael could have that could potentially threaten lethal. Pursue Glory would give 6 additional points of damage here on the attack.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Michael really would have blocked anyway, right? Like, is he really going to block your Heckma Sentinels with his 2/3? Just hope you don't have a single cycling card.
Right, so that Labyrinth Guardian is just going to, it was just like, the attack didn't provide a lot of value.
It's always going to get blocked
exactly.
Anyway, so, yeah. Now, as it turns out, it could be pretty relevant here. Michael uses Electrify to take down the Drake. Now, what that means is he does not need to exert his on-crop Crasher that turn. So he basically netted No life loss and an additional exert potential for next turn. So that's extra damage that could happen here.
So Michael is currently at 9 life, though. If Brian Braun-Duin has 2 cyclers, that is 9 damage. That is lethal.
And what does Michael have for mana? Just a single swamp? That's not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do anything.
Fatal Push is not in this format,
No,
so he will
no.
not have to worry about that. And there is no untap effect, no Jiro's Resolve type effect in black.
The interesting thing, too, is if Brian has, like, 1 cycler,
Oh,
2 cyclers.
sorry. Michael can have, of course, Supernatural Stamina and target the Labyrinth Guardian to prevent the 2 damage.
That's true. Used it as a
Yeah.
removal spell. Good call, Paul. That is definitely one thing he could have here. And it looks like
Brian
is
does
going
not
to pump the brakes.
Oh, nice. So a Glyph Keeper from Brian means that it will have a very good chance of being able to block this turn because Michael needs 2 effects
Right.
to make it not be able to block. If he has a removal spell in hand, though, he can choose to target it with the Crasher.
The on-crop crasher. Yeah, he
Right,
needs
and
an
then
instant speed removal spell.
Yeah.
But there are at least a couple that take care of the Glyph Keeper here. He could have Final Reward, Deem Worthy, another Electrify.
Yes. Although,
Of course, that would leave blockers for Brian Braun-Duin since he would have to use that trigger from the on-crop crasher to knock the initial shield
right.
off of the Glyph Keeper.
But Michael also wants to provide some pressure. If he just doesn't attack, Brian is, again, threatening lethal with a couple of cyclers.
Mm-hmm.
He does have the nice little combo of Pathmaker Initiate plus Minotaur Sure Shot. You could make that unblockable because it has 2 power, then pump it after attacks,
Mm-hmm.
which allows you to get in for more unblockable damage.
Instead, he's going to offer a trade for the Heckma Sentinels, it looks like.
And I think Brian will happily block here.
Yeah, he seemed like he couldn't wait to make that block.
Yeah.
And Michael says, all right, I don't like trading my premium card for your Heckma Sentinels, but he needs to clear the way, it looks like. He's also got a
Okay.
Gravedigger.
It makes a lot more sense just to get a creature off the board with the
Yeah.
Gravedigger. He can play it next turn and exert it again.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see you in a turn, he says. And he's also deftly left up just enough mana here for his Minotaur Sure Shot to trade with the Glyph Keeper.
Yeah, you could either use it to trade with the Glyph Keeper or, based on what happened last turn, you can kind of assume that Brian didn't have 2 cyclers. He might not even have 1. So if Brian attacks with both of the flyers, he might just choose to
Block the Vizier.
block the Vizier because
It's pretty risky.
Yeah,
I mean, 1 cycler saves it.
1 cycler does save it, but
And
but
getting
he
a
would
Glyph
need
Keeper off the battlefield's a pretty big game.
right. But he would need 2 cyclers to
Uh-oh.
actually get the Minotaur Sure Shot.
By the way, he's cycling Lay Claim right now.
Oh
Paul.
my goodness, that's dangerous. I guess he knows he has to deal with the Crasher. Also, Brian's on 6 lands, so if he blocks with the Sure Shot, pumps it, and trades with the Glyph Keeper, Brian can just play a land and embalm the Glyph Keeper.
Yeah, that was Lay Claim that got cycled.
Ooh.
Oh, how about a Cartouche of Ambition on the Shadowstorm Vizier? He's going to put a counter now on the Minotaur Sure Shot, which means that it's not going to be able to get big enough. And this
to
is
trade
gonna
with
be,
the Glyph Keeper.
Yes, to trade with the Keeper. So now BBD with a huge swing in his favor. Nice play.
But this is not lethal damage.
No.
This is not lethal damage. This is 7. This will put Brian up to 10, Michael down to 1, right?
If Michael doesn't block at
right,
all.
Michael plays the Crasher. That's 3, 5, 7, 8 damage. And if he draws a land, that's 10 damage.
I mean, 8 is lethal.
Well, Brian's going to gain 2 off the Cartouche.
Yes, I'm saying now, but
So maybe he shouldn't block here, right? Because if he plays a land with the Crasher,
he's going to gain 3 off the Cartouche. How about make it 6?
wow, okay.
Is that lethal? No.
No, because he
It's
blocked the
going to
Glyph
knock.
Keeper.
It's going to knock Michael down to 2. Right? It should be trigger from Cartouche, +1 for Cartouche, base, then plus.
Oh, he
2
cycled the
more,
Lane Claimer,
plus
of
3.
course. Yeah, that's 11 damage. Yeah.
But
And had Michael not blocked, he would have just died, of course. because-
exactly, significantly, easily just died. So
Wow.
that turn ended up being the critical turn in the game, and yeah, we've got it.
A lot of back and forth. But I mean, Michael put up a pretty good fight considering Brian had a pretty nice draw and was on the play.
Yep.
You know, the red-black deck always wants to go first, so this should get interesting once Michael is back on the play.
Okay, we've got a side match between Travis Wu and John
It's a
Cavalier.
lot of tokens.
Wow, Travis.
Is that an Anointer's Procession?
Yes. So he is just going off. It looks like he's actually got Oketra's Monument and Anointer's Procession, which is a really nasty combo.
He basically has 2 Oketra's Monuments on the battlefield here.
Yeah.
So Anointer's Procession, a card that's not commonly played in Limited.
No.
It's a 4-mana enchantment. When a token enters the battle, when one or more tokens enter the battlefield, you basically put that many more tokens. It's almost like a doubling season type effect, where, yeah, if an effect would create 1 or more tokens, it creates twice that many tokens instead. So
Under your control.
Under your control.
Yeah.
So with the Oketra's Monument, anytime you play a creature, you get a 1/1 Vigilance token. You're just going to get 2. So it looks like we've played a few turns. It's pretty nice. It also works with Embalm. Anytime we like kind of do a look in, and there's just a blue-white deck, there's always like 20 creatures on the
There's
battlefield.
always shenanigans afoot as well. The problem for Travis here is that it doesn't look like he yet has a way to actually capitalize on all of those, as John just has a pretty pedestrian board of a bunch of 2 toughness creatures.
Wow!
What did he just play?
John attacked with an Unwavering Initiate and an Exerted Gustwalker. Cast Mighty Leap and Brute Strength on the Unwavering Initiate.
To add 5
That's
more,
11
8, 9, 10,
damage.
11 exactly. And John Cavalier wins the match 2-0 against an army of tokens from Travis.
Didn't Travis extend the hand?
It was 11, right?
3,
3, 4, 5,
5,
6,
8.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Was the life total? There must have been a life total discrepancy.
Okay, yeah, because we had him at 11. And if he exerted the Gustwalker, that's 3,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah.
I've also have a question with like how the handshakes work. You know,
Does that count
Is
as
that
a
a concession? I guess not.
I mean, not if you go, oh, wait, I'm not dead.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I don't know, though. Weird.
Huh. So
Maybe Travis was just at 12.
yeah, that has to be it, right? Because that was 11 damage. Oh my. Pretty sure John thought it was lethal too.
We did, John did, Travis did, but it wasn't. Now, can Travis actually turn this thing around is the question. Like,
Well, yeah,
the Gustwalker, I'm assuming, was exerted even though we're not actually showing it as such.
Right. Yeah, he needs to be aggressive here because that he doesn't have on board. He doesn't have an answer to a flyer, and he's at 1. All the creatures do have vigilance, so he can play offense and defense. He might be able to throw away a few tokens just to get in for some damage here. Imagine if Travis had like an Anointer Priest in play while he was doing all these token shenanigans.
Sure. He would definitely not be dead.
Yeah.
PM Modern Challenge. Once again, your pairings are posted at the blue gathering point. 1 p.m. Modern.
Are those Labyrinth Guardian tokens?
Find your pairings at the blue
Might be.
gathering point.
Yeah, it looks like Travis has a pretty decent deck. He's got 10 creatures on the battlefield, and John only has 4 blockers. If John opts to, you know, eat a bunch of the tokens, maybe a 2/2. No. I mean, Travis does have to push through some damage. And again, if he just draws any creature, it'll also just give him 2 additional creatures onto the battlefield. With the Oketra's Monument and the Anointer's Procession, or Anointed Procession.
9 a.m. sealed challenge players. 9 a.m. sealed round 4.
Travis lining up how John would likely block here.
Once again, 9 a.m. sealed challenge players. Round 4 pairings are on
Think-
the way.
Oh, but not with the tokens. Okay. So Travis opting to just basically only attack with kind of the 2 power creatures. John It looks like he might have an okay block on the Duelist, but he actually doesn't want to block the Duelist, as Travis can embalm it and put basically 2 creatures onto the battlefield off of that.
Yeah, it just gets worse from there.
Right, and I don't think he wants to trade with the Unwavering Initiate either. Oh, maybe he does. Also, John isn't like really forced to make some of these blocks. Like he can just maybe take some of that damage, but I guess he might be concerned that Travis might try to go wide next turn. But at the same time, John really just has to kind of John's game plan right now is to just kind of survive a turn, so that the Gustwalker can get through. So I guess blocking now makes more sense to try to get the bigger creatures off the board. But I wouldn't really want to trade with any of the Embalm cards, right? Because that's going to just give Travis more power next turn.
Well, the Gustwalker just untapped.
Oh, okay. So
I guess
keep in mind this was kind of a live look in.
What was that?
A Wind's Rebuke.
Okay. That would buy Travis another turn.
And John is currently at 14. Does Travis have enough offense, though? Oh, and he milled an Edifice of Authority, which would have been great.
It would have been insane for him.
Yeah, that would have probably been it, because Travis has the ground on lockdown here. I think Travis still needs to draw something here.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be facing lethal and doesn't really have the ability to apply lethal unless he finds something like a Trial of Solidarity or something like that.
Right, because John can block the 2 Unwavering Initiate tokens and will take a total of 9 damage if Travis opts to attack with everything and John chooses to block with both of his zombies.
Right, all he needs to do is not die and protect the Gustwalker.
Yes. Cross your fingers. Yeah, put a creature in front of the Gustwalker. Maybe he'll block.
Yeah. You got to try it.
Yeah. Actually, Travis just basically, when he put the top 2 cards of his library, those are basically 2 cards that would have actually just allowed him to win the game.
Yep.
Either the Winds of Rebuke or the Edifice of Authority.
How brutal.
Yeah.
Mill the win cards.
Yeah. You know,
Well,
of course,
we
it's
haven't
just
seen what he drew for the turn yet, have we? So maybe he found something.
yeah, a flyer, a removal effect, gain 3 life, a renewed faith. Of course, also like Inoketra's name, some kind of combat trick.
Looks like the Gustwalker may be entering blocking duty here, risking a potential pump spell, impeccable timing, things like that.
Yeah, but the thing with impeccable timing is it's going to get John when he attacks anyways.
Yeah, but there's pump spells.
Yeah, but the pump spell in the format is Mighty Leap, which would also get John.
Sure.
And Ajira's Resolve wouldn't do it. I don't think there are many pump spells that
Inoketra's name would win anyway.
Exactly. So I actually think that was a good block.
An astute block there from John.
Because it's like anything that you would have. Oh, he also has a Magma Spray in hand.
So he has a Mega Spray in his hand. Oh, so he had a backup plan.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, man,
here it is.
Early in the format, I'm just like, well, all right, exert this. And now we get another handshake. All right, and then he wants to see his hand. All right, our main match is underway here. That was John Cavilli winning that match 2-0. So let's go back over.
Gustwalker, even in the late game. Wow, both players at 20. But oh, just kidding. Brian at 4. That makes a lot more sense. I see a ton of cards in the graveyard here, too.
Yeah, just sometimes it takes a sec to get the graphic updated. But not good news for Brian Browndoin fans. He is significantly behind Michael here and looking to try to stabilize the best he can.
It looks like he's put up a reasonable fight considering he's only drawn islands here. But at the same time, I guess 80% of his deck is probably just blue cards because he's the only blue drafter at the table.
Mm-hmm. See, I believe there's a Glyph Keeper in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Not something you see every day.
And Brian had to basically mill a Cartouche of Ambition because he has no black mana when he casts this Naga Oracle. So yeah, Michael, any combat trick is going to win him the game here. Any removal spell will also win him the game.
What if he has nothing?
Yeah, okay.
Shimmer Scale Drake. This is the beginning of a comeback
That
here.
was a spell.
off the top for Michael.
Right. It looked like it was a red spell.
Clearly, he's the aggressor in the matchup. He clearly got off to a good start. It's just a matter of, can he finish the job?
Right.
Sometimes easier said than done.
There's not any, falter type effects outside of Trial of Zeal. There's actually not that much reach in terms of burn. There's no card that Electrify, for example, only deals 4 damage to a creature.
Yeah, just the Trial of Zeal, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deem Worthy doesn't hit players either. Same
Right.
thing with Magma Spray.
I guess a cut to ribbons if he has one of those.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow, Brian attacking.
Brian's attacking, so he found something else, and oh boy, did he. Curator of Mysteries, a 4/4 flyer here for Brian Brown doing.
Wow.
Huh.
Wow.
Maybe we came back to the game just in time to see him mount his mighty comeback, because this one could swing back in his favor very quickly.
That's Flying Army.
Battlefield looks a lot more like a traditional Flyers deck. 2 flyers in the air, a 2/4 and a 2/3 on the ground.
And he's got a lot of high-quality flyers. I believe he drafted 3 copies of Shimmer Scale Drake, Curator of Mysteries, Aven Initiate, Glyph Keeper, double Shadowstorm Vizier.
By the way, he wheeled both of them.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
Warfire, Javelineer, but not enough spells to pick off any of the creatures on the board.
Right.
Michael just wants to add another creature here
Yeah.
to make it it difficult for Brian to attack.
And you saw Brian said, okay, yeah, he takes it.
Yeah.
No problem. And once again, a reminder on the Labyrinth Guardian, it must be a spell that targets it.
Right.
Brian's going to continue to chip away in the air, this time just for 4.
Okay,
And
there's
he's got a Talkrop Skirmisher as well. Really trying to make sure he doesn't give this one away.
Michael really hope, just wondering, man, why couldn't he play that the turn before? My Javeliner would have actually killed something.
Yeah.
This could be a cartouche. Nope.
Ooh, that's a decent threat here, though. And a Curse Minotaur is, it has menace.
Yeah. Every time Michael matches Brian with a creature, it just means that Brian can't really attack with both of his flyers. He has to be very, very careful because there is an active on-crop crasher on the battlefield.
That's right. He's effectively down a blocker at all times here. And adding menace creatures to the board kind of makes that even stronger.
Right.
Especially
Unfortunately,
with Brian at a precarious 4 life.
Yeah, but that is really important that he's at 4 because he can afford to take that hit from the Cursed Minotaur to block all the other creatures.
Yep. But he decides he wants to continue chipping away, and you can see why. He knows that the longer this goes, the more chance that Michael has something to find a removal spell or a way to get in that damage. And 4 in the air is no joke. I mean, that adds up very quickly. He's down to 7.
Yeah, this puts Michael down to 7, and if Michael doesn't have a lethal attack this turn, Brian can attack for 7 in the air next turn. So
Just
this,
snap him off.
this is the turn where Michael actually needs to do something. He needs to force the action here. But Brian is sitting at 2 cards in hand too. Ooh, and a Trial of Ambition, and Brian might actually have to sacrifice the Curator of Mysteries here to survive. I know you really want to sacrifice the Talkrop Skirmisher, but
Totally. Oh.
yeah,
Oh, I feel so bad, man.
best Trial of Ambition ever.
No kidding. My opponent had 5 creatures, one of them a 4/4 flying rare, and they sacked that one.
Oh man,
That is savage.
so what's he looking to do here? Make it so the Shimmer Scale Drake can't block, line up the blocks, and the Cursed Minotaur would get through, but Michael would lose 2 of his creatures, and Brian would be able to eat a Crasher with the Naga Oracle here. Michael could now choose to wait a turn because he did get that Curator of Mysteries off the board.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian is only 1 land away from embalming the Glyph Keeper that's in the graveyard.
Yeah, any land. Also, of note here, Brian has operated completely with islands thus far.
Mono blue.
Yeah, that
Pure
his
magic.
deck does have black spells in it, but apparently not in game 3 here.
Yeah. So Michael's just 1 cartouche of Zeal away from winning the game too.
He's in full Huey Jensen mode over there, hands on the head.
Not
and
like this.
Really grinding through. What might happen?
Wow, he had nothing. He passed the turn. And Michael just keeps drawing threats. He's been on, he was a little, he was stuck on, he was on 6 lands for a while, but he's been drawing basically a threat for the last 3 or 4 turns in a row. It looked like Brian was going to make a comeback here.
He was so close.
Yeah.
If he untapped that turn and attacked with both, it was for lethal.
Right.
Ooh. Cartouche of Knowledge. That puts him 1 away, though there is, of course, the Minotaur Sure Shot over there now.
Yeah.
Interesting that Michael has left himself not the ability to tap
Oh, okay.
for 4. Festering Mummy. All right, there's a blocker.
Yeah, that sideboard card that Brian drafted, like 3rd pick in the last pack.
Yep. Good little sideboard card.
Yeah.
Some decks do not like to see that.
So Brian is 1 damage away from lethal. Oh, and Michael just choosing to get in this turn, being really aggressive. All right, so what is not being blocked here? He's targeting the Naga Oracle. Yeah. So that's so Brian can block 4 of these creatures. And he basically can take the damage from the Cursed Minotaur. That's the only way he can live.
Mm-hmm.
And block all the other creatures. And I think he has a reasonable block everywhere.
He's got to be nervous about what Michael could have here.
Yeah, at the same time, Brian could still have, he's got 4 mana, he could have a Winds of Rebuke or a Commit in his hand.
Absolutely.
Probably looking to, oh, okay. So trade there.
It's a good start.
Right. Okay, that would be a trade too. Michael can just pump up the Minotaur Sure Shot.
Twice.
Okay, that's offering the trade with the Harsh Mentor, and the Labyrinth Guardian gets to block. What was that creature down there again? Oh, Warfire Javelineer. Right.
Those would bounce off.
Oh, and does he have a? Is this a combat trick?
It's
Brute strength.
And this allows him to trample over, but we've got commit.
And I like Michael
This is a big
targeting
fight.
the Harsh Mentor here and not the Cursed Minotaur. Because if Brian does have a combat trick or a bounce spell here, he still gets Brian down to 1 life.
That's right. Smart play from Michael, but it is not going to work out for him here.
Does Brian have lethal on the attack back?
That is the question,
3, 4, 5.
isn't it?
I don't think so. I think he has 5 damage. Michael needs to pump up the Minotaur Sure Shot twice to get rid of the Drake. And the Festering Mummy lives. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's going to have 6 damage.
Oh, it's so close.
So he can get Michael down to 1, 2 if he wants.
If he wants, but that would leave him dead.
Right.
Because he did still take the 3 from the Cursed Minotaur.
But Brian is now at 1.
Oh, man, this is close. And Brian
needs to
does
play a
not have
creature.
any of his cyclers either, right? So
Right.
his cycle creatures, I mean, so he can't just generate 1 more power out of nowhere here.
He does have 3 creatures on the board now. He's got 7 mana, so he can embalm the Glyph Keeper here, right? So
Yes.
if he wants to be really conservative, he can embalm the Glyph Keeper, pass, and then on the next turn he has 8 points of flying.
Yes. That's very difficult to interact with.
Right. So this is a pretty risky attack, and again, he doesn't have lethal, so I think embalming is a pretty reasonable play. Of course, we don't know the contents of his hand. Looks like a Shadowstorm Vizier. Oof.
Ooh, he's going to open up the door here.
Yeah.
We know Michael has some powerful stuff.
I would guess that he has 2 things to play here.
He has to, right?
Right.
The Top Crop Skirmisher is going to get embalmed.
Okay. Oh, and
Does
you know
that
what?
leave him pretty safe?
Right, because this is still a 2-turn clock because the Naga Oracle is a 3-power flyer and the Shadowstorm Vizier is a 1-power flyer.
Sure. And lands in hand for
Wow.
Michael. Brian Brown doing escapes that one. What a close game. Well played.
Yeah.
That was a great one. And BBD is going to be 12-0. He's running up the score here.
Yeah. That is.
I mean, he's
that is
already
insane.
thinking about top 8s after this, right?
Yeah, all he needs to do is likely pick up a win. But at the same time, he could also lose twice and draw potentially. Chris Bukula at Grand Prix Orlando was 12-0, lost his first round, and then double drew into the top 8. So he's got to be feeling really good about picking up that win, especially considering he was stuck on just islands for the first 10 turns of the game.
Yeah. He cast 2 black spells
Right.
the last 2 turns. Wow, great stuff from round 12. We'll be back with more Magic after these messages.